Is that YOLO? Probably a rare card. You hear somebody YOLO? Everyone's saying YOLO. Fuck! I got the worst one! It's the worst one of the whole game. Tiny house. Am I still renting or did I buy a house? I'm renting. Just get a house, lol. Actually, if you do the math on buying a house in Austin, it's pretty bad. I mean, people are buying assuming it'll appreciate a lot, which it probably will, but even if it has to appreciate a lot for it to really be worth buying. Renting is good, trust. You guys want me to do the math for you? Renting versus buying a house. Okay, Austin, Texas property tax, let's look it up. 1.9% property tax. You get to write off the property tax, which is at whatever tax bracket you're at. 35% of it back, assuming you have income the whole time. And then you get back 35% of the loan you take of the loan in the long run. We got to bring up a mortgage calculator. So if you buy a 1 million house, 30-year, you end up paying 1.7 million. Okay? 1 mil house, you pay 1.7 million, but on the 700K of the loan, you get back 35% because you can write it off. Okay? See, but look, you end up paying a lot, 1.7, right? And then you get back 245 of it. 245K back if you're making income the whole time and writing it off. And then every year you pay 19K property tax, okay? Because 1.9% property tax on a 1 million house. You're forever, even after you own the house, you pay 19K. And you could write off, again, you can write off 35% of it or whatever tax bracket you're at. So you get back 6.65K. And then, but if you, after you own the house, when you're not making income, you're still paying the 19K, so you don't always get the 6,650 back forever. So what's happened here? We bought $1 million house, let's say, and then after 30 years, we have paid 1.7 mil, but minus 1.7 mil minus 245K, minus 245K, and an additional 19 minus 6.65, this times 30, 370.5K in property tax. So we've paid 1.825 million, okay? After 30 years. Okay. If we were renting for 30 years, well, the nicest, if renting a $1 million house here is really nice, very nice place here, is like $3,000 a month to rent. It's like $2,500 really. I'll go with $2,500. I think $2,500 a month here, you get a very nice place. And like San Francisco is different, right? But times 12 and then 30 years. So you ended up paying $900K to rent for 30 years. But in this situation, you own a house that's probably now worth, like $2 million or something, right? We don't know what it's going to be worth though. So we don't know what it's going to be worth. I have no idea. 30 years. It could be worth $3 million. It could be, who knows, right? Anyway, you paid $900K that you don't get back, but you do get to write off if you work at home, which is, from a streamer, if it's a little different from a streamer perspective, because if you work at home, you get to write off 35% on the portion of your place you use to stream, which if you have a really small place is actually better. Huh? What was that? Fuck you. Okay, anyway. Okay, if you stream, then you get to write off, let's say you use half of your place for streaming. If you have like a one bedroom, then you get back, let's say, you would get back 35% if you use the whole place for streaming, but you can't say that the whole place is your office. You get back 15% because you don't really use half of it. And 15% on 900K is 135K. So you get 135K back. So as a streamer, maybe you paid 765K. Now, another thing, during this whole period, after the 30 years, yeah, you own a house that's worth a lot, but this guy who rented, he had a lot more money sitting around the whole time, because in this mortgage situation, you put down some amount at the beginning, like 200K or whatever. This guy invested the 200K, okay, and had it growing for 30 years. even if you only made like 6% on your investments for 30 years, it becomes a lot, you know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So from the 200K, you got 1.148 million, making only 6% per year, which is not a lot. Not a lot at all. Just looking at this quickly, you're like, oh, renting seems totally cool, right? And you're not tied down to any place. This is after the 30 years. When you're early in buying the house, like when you're 10 years in or whatever, the guy who is rented is even happier because you put money down in the front. So after 10 years, if we switch this, I mean, there's so many different ways to think about it in different house prices and different property tax numbers and different tax brackets. So you kind of have to do the math for yourself. Someone said inflation doesn't exist. No, inflation is not relevant because we're comparing an amount of money in 30 years to an amount of money in 30 years. So they're both affected by the inflation the exact same way. Basically, this is what happened. This guy ended up taking the money that he would have put on a down payment and living for free plus making a little bit on his investments. And especially if he was a streamer and he got to write some of it off. Got to make like 400K. And this guy, after 30 years, he has whatever his house is worth, which might be 2 million, might be 3 million, we don't know. This guy here, actually, on top is still paying the 19K property tax in perpetuity. And if he stops working, then he doesn't get to write any of it off. 19K property tax is a fuckload because it's almost like it's equivalent to rent of 2K per month because 2K per month rent is 24K a year. And this guy's almost paying rent, still after he owns the place. That's the shitty feeling. If you buy a house in a place with high property tax, like here, 1.9, you're almost paying rent. You're paying $1,583 per month forever rent on your house you own. And hey, lol. Yeah, that's how it is here, though. This is actually specific calculation to Texas, but it's still useful to a lot of you probably. Anyway, in short, everyone's telling you to buy a house all the time and how amazing it is or whatever. Don't get sucked into that thinking. You have to do the math for your specific situation and see if it's actually worth it. Because you buy a house, you're tied down to the house. You're going to end up living and traveling and moving around way less often because, you just are. You're going to have less fun, probably, unless it gives you, like, a really good peace of mind. So the just get a house lull, it's not so good, it's not so good. In the end, it can actually, even after a long period of time, it can be very similar renting and buying. And in the short period of time, you're way better off with renting, right? But even looking in 30 years, you're still okay. The whole world wants you to think that you should just buy a house because that's how the banks make all their money from renting, like doing these loans to you. They make fucking $700K loaning you $1 million. That's crazy. That's how the banks make all their money. So they want you to buy a house. They want everyone to think that it's the best to buy a house. It's not always the best to buy a house. That's all I have to say.